Sometimes, in the pursuit of entertainment, things go terribly, terribly wrong. This is a tale of wrestling personas that missed the mark so badly that they left fans cringing, groaning, or simply shaking their heads in disbelief. If there's one persona that stands out as particularly misguided, it's Kerwin White, the character that saw Chavo Guerrero denounce his Mexican heritage in favor of a white, country club lifestyle. As Kerwin White, Chavo would drive to the ring in a golf cart, sporting blonde hair, khaki pants, and a polo shirt. He looked every bit the stereotype of an upper-class white man, complete with a smug, condescending attitude. Kerwin White would often spout catchphrases like "if it's not white, it's not right," and his promos were filled with disparaging remarks about minorities, especially Mexicans. He even had a caddy, played by none other than Nick Nemeth, who would later become famous as Dolph Ziggler. The whole gimmick was an uncomfortable mix of racism and classism, and it didn't take long for fans and critics alike to voice their disapproval. The character was so tone-deaf that even Chavo Guerrero himself expressed discomfort with it. In interviews, Chavo has recounted how he met with Vince McMahon to discuss just how far they were willing to take the gimmick. He even suggested going as far as coming out in a white sheet, a proposal that, thankfully, was rejected. The character of Kerwin White didn't last long, and when Chavo's uncle Eddie Guerrero tragically passed away, Chavo used the opportunity to drop the gimmick and return to his roots. The entire Kerwin White saga is a dark chapter in WWE history, serving as a reminder of how badly character creation can go wrong. Now, let's talk about Katie Leah Burchill and the uncomfortable sibling storyline that no one asked for. Before we dive into her story, it's worth noting that WWE has a history of questionable family-related storylines. Remember beaver cleavage? But the angle involving Katie Leah Burchill and her on-screen brother Paul took things to a whole new level of awkwardness. Debuting on an episode of Monday Night Raw in 2006, Paul and Katie Leah Burchill were introduced as a pair of siblings who were, let's just say, a little too close for comfort. They would constantly touch each other, hold hands, and exchange lingering glances that left viewers feeling uneasy. The announcers, perhaps recognizing the discomfort this angle caused, didn't shy away from making the innuendo even more blatant. The promos didn't help either. Katie Lee would speak about how her brother always made her happy, and Paul would suggest that whatever Katie wanted, Katie would get. The lack of subtlety made it even worse, and the audience was left wondering what exactly WWE was trying to achieve with this storyline. Thankfully, the angle was eventually toned down, and the duo never rose above the undercard. But for those who witnessed it, the uncomfortable memories remain. Dustin Rhodes, better known as Goldust, has had his fair share of strange personas throughout his career, but none were as bizarre as Seven. The character made his debut in WCW in 1999, and from the moment he appeared, it was clear that something was off. Seven was introduced through a series of eerie vignettes that featured him standing outside a child's bedroom window, watching the child sleep. The imagery was unsettling, to say the least, and it quickly drew comparisons to horror movie villains like Freddy Krueger. When Seven finally made his in-ring debut, he was dressed in all black, with his face painted ghostly white. He floated to the ring in an elaborate entrance, shrouded in fog and mystery. But just as fans were starting to wonder what this new character was all about, Dustin Rhodes broke character and cut a scathing promo, denouncing the gimmick as ridiculous and declaring that he was done playing silly characters. It was a shocking moment that left fans confused and amused. The truth is, Seven was never going to work. The character was too creepy, too bizarre, and too far removed from what wrestling fans wanted to see. It was yet another example of WCW trying to push the envelope in ways that didn't resonate with their audience. The Seven gimmick was quickly abandoned, and Dustin Rhodes moved on to other, more successful personas. But for those who witnessed it, the memory of Seven lingers as one of wrestling's most embarrassing misfires. Let's move on to Mike Awesome, a wrestler who should have been a promoter's dream. He had the size, the agility, and the look of a star. Standing tall with an impressive physique, he was a force to be reckoned with in the ring. But despite his undeniable talent, Mike Awesome's career took a bizarre turn when he jumped to WCW while still the ECW champion, a move that, though controversial, was legally sound since he wasn't under contract. Unfortunately for Awesome, Vince Russo, one of the most polarizing figures in wrestling history, didn't think Mike was entertaining enough. What followed was a series of gimmicks that would ultimately tarnish Awesome's career. Starting as the self-proclaimed career killer, Awesome showed promise by tossing Canyon off a giant cage. But then things got really weird. WCW decided to repackage him as the Fat Chick Thriller, a persona that revolved around Awesome's supposed fetish for overweight women. The announcers, particularly Mark Madden, had a field day with fat jokes, often mocking Awesome's character and insinuating that the ring had to be reinforced for his matches. It was an angle that felt tasteless and unnecessary, and it left fans puzzled and disappointed. Mercifully, this gimmick didn't last long, but the damage to Awesome's reputation was already done. If there's one character that exemplifies WWE's tendency to borrow from pop culture in the worst possible way, it's Jillian Hall and her infamous mole. Inspired by the Austin Powers movie Goldmember, where a character played by Fred Savage has a prominent mole on his face, WWE decided to give Jillian Hall a grotesque, oversized growth on the side of her face. The mole was so large and ridiculous that it became the focal point of Jillian's character. Announcers and wrestlers alike would make snide comments about it, and it was clear that the entire gimmick was designed to make fun of her appearance. The storyline reached its absurd conclusion when the Boogeyman, another bizarre character, ate the mole off Jillian's face during an episode of Piper's Pit. The entire angle was as cringe-worthy as it was unnecessary, and it left fans wondering what the creative team was thinking. Bruce Pritchard, a key figure in WWE's creative team at the time, has defended the gimmick, claiming it was just something to talk about. But for most fans, it was yet another example of WWE's penchant for using cheap, mean-spirited humor at the expense of its talent. Jillian Hall's character was later repackaged, but the damage had already been done, and she is still remembered for that ridiculous mole. If you enjoy this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and crush that notification bell. When it comes to cringeworthy personas, few can rival the Mexicools, a trio of incredibly talented luchadors whose gimmick was built around offensive stereotypes. Comprised of Juventud Guerrera, Psicosis, and Super Crazy, the Mexicools were brought into WWE's cruiserweight division with high hopes. After all, these were some of the best luchadors in the world. But instead of showcasing their in-ring prowess, WWE decided to lean into an uncomfortable stereotype. When the Mexicools made their debut, they didn't arrive in the ring like other wrestlers. No, they rode in on lawnmowers, wearing coveralls emblazoned with the words "Juan Deere." A not-so-subtle play on the popular lawn equipment brand. In their debut promo, Juventud Guerrera addressed the fans, calling out the stereotypes that had been associated with Mexicans, claiming they were here to take over rather than clean toilets. The initial promo might have had a rebellious edge, but it was lost in the execution of the gimmick. Instead of breaking down stereotypes, the Mexicools were reinforcing them week after week. The lawn mowers became their signature entrance. And the gimmick never evolved beyond its problematic roots. Even Juventud Guerrera, who was initially behind the idea, later admitted that he wasn't a fan of the direction it took. He had hoped to bring respect to Mexican wrestlers, not reinforce tired cliches. Despite their immense talent, the Mexicools are remembered more for their gimmick than their matches, which is a shame considering what they could have been.